On a beautiful, clear, sunny morning in April of 2014, two young women started up a hiking trail in Panama. They hiked about 2.5 miles to the summit. Once there, they took multiple selfies and photos of each other with a beautiful scenery in the background. But for some reason, instead of hiking back down the trail, they went further into the jungle, and they never returned. Hi, I'm Mindy. Welcome to the Missing Link channel. Each missing person and unsolved mystery is just one missing link away from being solved. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our videos and help us find that missing link. This is the second video in this series on the disappearance of Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon. If you haven't watched the first part yet, you will want to watch it before continuing on with this video. I will put a link to part 1 above. In the first video, we discussed how Kris and Lisanne were on a 6-week adventure in Panama to explore the area, learn Spanish, and volunteer at a local school. They had already spent 2 weeks in Panama before arriving in Boquete. Due to some confusion, the school where they were volunteering at weren't quite ready for them, so they had an extra week to continue exploring Panama. On April 1st, they started hiking up the Pianista Trail around 11 o'clock a.m. They took 16 photos on the way up and reached the summit at about 1 o'clock p.m. After taking photos on the summit, instead of hiking back down the way they came, the girls crossed over the Continental Divide and continued on a rugged, non-maintained trail. They took 6 more photos on this side of the trail. The last photo taken was at 1:54 p.m. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary in any of these photos, but something happened in the next few hours. At 4:30 p.m., the girls tried to call an emergency number. We discussed the activity on their cell phones, the strange photos taken late one night, and how the last activity on the phone was on April 11th. We ended the last video with the girl's backpack being discovered downstream by a native woman, but the backpack and contents were dry, and the electronics were still in working order. In this video, we will try to determine what happened that fateful day. But let's continue on with the timeline. The backpack was found on June 14th, 74 days after Kris and Lisanne disappeared on the Pianista Trail. There were 30 different fingerprints found on this backpack, but none were ever identified. Once the backpack was found, searches for the girls started up again. But instead of searching the Pianista Trail, the searches were done in the area where the backpack was found, which was about 5 miles from where the girls' last location was. While searching the area, a local found Kris's shorts. There are different accounts of where the shorts were found. One account states the shorts were found folded and on a rock about 1.5 miles upstream from the backpack. Another account states that the shorts were found in the water. So why were Kris's shorts found separate from her remains? I wonder if the girls had their bikini bottoms on under their shorts. Maybe they took their shorts off to take a swim and something went seriously wrong. Or perhaps the shorts were off for a more sinister reason. On June 19th, 5 days after the backpack was discovered, the first remains were found by locals. Near the river, a shoe with a foot inside was found behind a tree. This was Lisanne's boot. Inside the boot was a sock, foot, and ankle bones. There was some flesh still left on Lisanne's foot bones. More bones were discovered upstream and downstream from where the backpack was found. Only 33 bones were ever found that were spread out over a large area. 28 of those bones were from Lisanne's foot. Part of Kris's pelvic bone was also found. However, there wasn't flesh still remaining on her pelvic bone. We will get into this in greater detail later. They also found a boot of Kris's. There are 206 bones in the human body. So there should have been 412 bones found between Kris and Lisanne. However, only 33 bones were found. That is just over 6%. And most of those bones were from Lisanne's foot. The bones found were a pelvic bone, rib bone, and foot bones. The remains were found about a day's hike from the Pianista Trail. It would have been at least a 12-hour hike. How did the bones end up there? I see at least 4 possibilities. Number 1, the girls hiked to this location and died where their bones were found. If that was the case, though, where is the rest of their bodies? Maybe wild animals came upon the bodies after the woman had passed away, and maybe the animals scattered their remains. However, there were no animal marks on the bones, no teeth marks. Number 2, the girls ended up in the river, perished, and the water brought their bodies downstream. But once again, where is the rest of their bodies? Why weren't more bones found? Number 3, a person kidnapped and murdered the women and placed their bodies there. However, the bodies were never completely located. You would think that if the bodies were placed there, that more bones and possibly clothing would have been located in that same area. Number 4, Kris and Lisanne died on the trail due to an accident or even an animal attack, and this animal dragged their bones to this location. This might help explain why only a small amount of bones were found. The rest of their bodies could be at a higher elevation. However, the bones have no marks on them or any evidence to show that there was an animal attack. But remember, only a few bones were found. Strangely enough, there were other bones found during the search. But these bones weren't from Kris and Lisanne. They were from 3 other people. And these bones had indigenous DNA. So apparently there are bones scattered around this area from multiple bodies. That is a little creepy and scary. Let's get back to Kris's bones. Remember I said that her pelvic bone didn't have any flesh on it? Some people claim that this bone was possibly bleached with lime, which would speed up the process of decay. Why was Kris's bones like this, but not Lisanne's? There is a lot of speculation when it comes to this fact. Some people believe this shows that foul play is involved. However, I am obviously no expert when it comes to the Panama rainforest and the decomposition of bodies, or the state of the bones left in that area for days. Decomposition can happen at different rates, depending on what environments the bodies encounter. Lisanne's bones that were found were located in her shoe and inside her sock, so the shoe and sock perhaps could have protected the bones from the elements. Kris's pelvic bone was found by itself, maybe in direct sunlight, spending more time in the water, encountering different minerals in the soil, or a number of other things that would help explain why her bones would have been in a different state than Lisanne's. Apparently, the full autopsy was not released. However, I don't know how much could have been learned from the small amount of remains that were found. It was released that the bones didn't show any sign of animal trauma or teeth marks, as I stated earlier. However, the cause of death could not be determined. So when I finished filming part 1, I came to the conclusion that the women must have gotten hurt along the trail and died due to an awful accident. Then I started discussing it with my husband, and I changed my mind completely once again. Perhaps the girls met with foul play. Like I said in video number 1, I just keep going back and forth between alternatives. I truly wish the phones could tell us where the phones were located at each phone call or signal attempt. I wonder if the girls were in the same location the whole time, or whether they were moving around, lost in the jungle, or trying to find their way out. Let's go back to April 1st. The girls seemed to be fine from their photos when they reached the summit around 1:00 p.m. Did something happen at the summit or farther down the trail? Did they mistakenly take the trail on the other side of the Continental Divide? Were they forced down the trail by someone? Did they go down the trail to avoid someone or something? Or did they mean to take this trail because they weren't done exploring? I always wonder why Kris and Lisanne didn't turn around. Why didn't they go back the way they came? Did they want to keep exploring since it was still so early in the day and something happened, preventing them from returning to the summit? Did they think that the trail was a circle that would have led them back down? Did they think that the river would lead them to safety? Maybe they got to a point where it was impossible or too hard to turn around. The backpack is a huge piece of evidence. Remember, it wasn't wet, and it wasn't a waterproof backpack either. It also didn't look like it had been in the elements during the rainy season. So it probably wasn't in the water. There is absolutely no way that it could have floated down the river, ended up in the field, and all of the electronics still in working order. The woman who found the backpack also claimed that it wasn't there the day before she found it. I don't know why she would be lying about this. If it was there the day before, it would be such an odd thing to find in a field. I think she would have noticed it and took it the day before. So how did the backpack get to the rice field for the woman to find it? I can think of 3 possible scenarios. 1, a person kidnapped the women and left the backpack there. Would have been a stupid move, but definitely a possibility. I don't know why he wouldn't have destroyed the backpack and its contents. I can't think of a reason he would want this to be found. It could possibly have evidence on it that could tie him to the crime. 2nd, a native person found the backpack in the jungle and brought it down, then realized what it was and didn't want to be associated with the missing women, so he laid it in the field. Definitely a possibility. 3rd, a native person found the backpack in the jungle and brought it back to the village. They opened it and realized what it was. Not wanting any trouble, possibly the woman said she would take it to the police and tell them that she found it in the field. Remember, there were numerous fingerprints on that backpack, so any of these are definitely possible. Remember, the camera and phones were found in this backpack. Let's look back at the photos that were taken by Kris and Lisanne. At least 30 photos were taken on April 1st. Of those 30, 17 were released to the public, and later 5 were leaked. What are on the other photos? Why release only 17? Could there be possible evidence on the photos that weren't released? Things the police do not want the public to know? As I mentioned in the first video, one photo Kris and Lisanne took is missing. It was deleted before the camera was found in the backpack months later. However, deleting a photo doesn't really mean it's deleted. Hackers can usually always locate a deleted photo, but in this situation, they couldn't. The missing photo was taken between the last photo on April 1st and the nighttime photos on April 8th. It is also unclear who deleted the photo. The girls hadn't deleted any photos during their entire trip so far, so it is unlikely that the girls deleted a photo that day. Did someone else delete the photo? Was it an error in the camera? The memory card had plenty of space, so that wasn't the reason the photo was deleted. I wonder what was on that missing photo. Was it taken on April 1st? Did this photo hold the evidence of what happened to the girls that day? Did it show a 3rd person? Did someone delete this photo so the truth wouldn't be discovered? Or did one of the girls delete the photo by accident or because they didn't like how it looked? I still find it odd that Kris or Lisanne didn't leave any videos or messages to their families, boyfriend, or friends. A lot of people who are lost do this. They leave a message just in case they do not come out alive. In the notes or videos, they tell others what was going on, what had happened. If only they had done that, so many questions would be answered. And what can we make of the nighttime photos? Why were they taken? There are multiple explanations for this as well. Number one, to light the way. If the girls were lost and trying to find their way, did they take photos to light the area as they walked? I doubt this, however. Have you ever taken a photo in the pitch black with a flash? It blinds you. I doubt the girls would have continued to take photos, especially 90 of them. And remember, the angles of the photos were so odd. Some taken directly into the jungle, some pointing down into a ravine, and others taken up into the night sky. They all seemed to be taken around the same spot, so the girls weren't moving or walking around. Plus, they were spread out over hours. Number two, to scare something or someone off. Were the girls being followed, or was there an animal close by? Could they hear someone or something and were using the flash to try to scare it away or see what it was? However, in 90 photos, nothing like an animal or a person was visible in the photos. Number three, someone else took the photos. Perhaps the person that kidnapped the girls took the photos to cause confusion, if the camera was ever found. But if someone else had the camera, why didn't they just destroy it? Why would they put it back in the backpack to be found and taken to the police? Number four, an SOS. There is speculation that there was a helicopter circling that area that day, searching for the girls. Did the girls spot the helicopter or hear it and try to get its attention with a flash? Were they trying to signal the rescuers? However, the jungle in this area is so dense and thick, it is unlikely the helicopter could even see down into the area to even see the flash. Remember, they also had laid out what looked like an SOS, possibly made out of toilet paper, with something spelled out, and a mirror as well. Number five, to leave clues. Were they trying to leave clues behind? Were they trying to show us something? Knowing that the camera would likely be discovered at some point and examined? Maybe they were trying to show the location of where they were. If Kris had already passed away, maybe Lisanne took the photos to show where she had left Kris, so she could come back later after she had been rescued. But if one or both of the girls were trying to leave clues, why take photos at night? Why not wait a few more hours until daylight? It would have been so much easier to take the photos, and the photos would be more clearer during the day. Remember, Kris and Lisanne's cell phones continued to be turned on for days looking for a signal, but a signal was never found. On April 11th, the last time the phone was turned on, the battery lasted an hour and 5 minutes before it turned off for the final time. Why was the phone left on? They could have turned the phone off again, and it would have been able to turn on at least a few more times. But they didn't do that. Did they choose to leave the phone on, or did something happen before they could turn the phone back off again? As we have all heard, the first 24 to 48 hours after a person goes missing is vital. However, there were only a few searches during this time, and mainly by locals. The police claim that they weren't 100% sure where the girls even went that day. The police really didn't start searching until 6 days later, on April 6th, after the girls' families arrived. However, at this time, it is possible that Kris, Lisanne, or both were still alive. There are so many possibilities of what could have happened to Kris and Lisanne. Number one, supernatural. I never really heard any real evidence to show that Kris and Lisanne disappeared due to something supernatural. Dark jungles can definitely be spooky, and some claim that there are spirits in this forest. However, I think this scenario isn't likely. Number two, they got lost. This is definitely a possibility. Someone or something could have scared them off the trail. Maybe they couldn't find their way back. They had no compass, and they could have walked in circles. Locals stated that it could be hard to find their way back to the trail if they got lost. Everything in the jungle looked so similar. What an absolute nightmare to be lost in a strange jungle. The police wondered if they were already lost when they were taking the photos on the other side of the Continental Divide that first day. However, they were still on the trail during this time, so I am not sure about this claim. Also, it was a sunny, clear day. It would be easier to get lost if the weather was bad. But that first night, April 1st, there was a new moon, which means no moon would have filled the night sky. It would be extremely hard to find your way around during this dark night. A person could definitely get lost in a jungle at night. And remember, all the trails in the area were searched, and nothing was found to show that the girls were on the trail. No evidence was left behind. Number 3, they died from the elements. It is believed that the girls only had one bottle of water with them. They wouldn't have lasted very long. Dehydration would definitely have been a problem. I wonder if they tried to drink out of the river. They could definitely have gotten sick from this. They also didn't likely have any food with them, unless they had something in the backpack. Food and water are vital for survival. You can live for a while without food, maybe even 3 or 4 weeks, but not without water. You can only live a few days, but no more than a week without water. The rainy season was starting, so perhaps they were able to drink some rainwater. Remember what the girls were wearing when they left that day. They definitely weren't prepared to spend the night in the jungle. They didn't have jackets to help with the cold or ponchos to keep the rain off. At night, the temperatures got down in the 50s and 60s. There is also one other factor. The host mom thought that maybe Lisanne was sick. She had been coughing, perhaps from an illness or maybe even asthma. Could this illness or asthma cause problems for Lisanne during the hike? Having breathing issues during a hike, especially to higher elevations, wouldn't be a good combination. It is possible that any of these elements were a factor in the girls' deaths. Number 4, an accident. The terrain on the other side of the Continental Divide is definitely dangerous. One or both of the girls could have gotten injured. There are ravines, monkey bridges, water crossings, steep terrain, muddy trails, just to name a few things. Kris and Lisanne could have been injured in many different ways. If one of them got severely injured, would they split up? Would the non-injured party leave to try to get help? Or would they stick together and hope that they were rescued? Many people believe that one or both fell from a monkey bridge over the ravine. There is evidence that perhaps both Kris and Lisanne were injured. One report states that Lisanne had broken bones or multiple fractures in her foot, perhaps from a fall. In my opinion, it would be virtually impossible to hike out of the jungle with this type of injury. But on the other hand, remember the phone. The passcode stopped being entered correctly on Kris's phone. It seems that perhaps Kris was injured in a way that she could no longer enter that code. So was it Lisanne who was trying to access the phone but didn't know the passcode? The passcode was entered correctly from April 1st up until April 5th at 1:37 p.m. when the PIN was entered correctly for the last time. On April 6th at 10:26 a.m., the PIN was entered incorrectly for the first time. Did something happen to Kris between April 5th at 1:37 p.m. and April 6th at 10:26 a.m.? And remember the nighttime photo of Kris's head. Why was that photo taken? A couple weeks ago, my daughter got a cut on the back of her head. The first thing she asked me to do was take a photo of it with my cell phone so she could look at it and see what it looked like. Is that what happened to Kris and Lisanne? Did Kris get hurt and ask Lisanne to take a photo? There are many ways the girls could have been injured. This scenario is definitely a possibility. Number 5, an animal attack. Remember, There are wild animals in this area. Did they suffer a snake bite, come across a jaguar, or another animal? Jaguars are the top of the food chain in Panama. They stalk their prey. It is very rare for them to attack a human, but they will attack, just like any other wild animal, if threatened. Kris and Lisanne were in the remote jungle of Panama, so this could be a possibility. Number 6. Foul play. Were the girls murdered by someone? Did someone follow them up the trail? Come across them on the trail? Or were they even with the girls that day? Could this have been a random person or someone they had met earlier on their trip? It is alleged that there are cannibals and cartel in the area. If they were kidnapped, there was never a ransom demand, so money wasn't the motive. Plus, the girls' cash and electronics were not stolen. The family also offered a reward, but no one ever came forward with information. Remember that missing photo from the camera? Perhaps that photo showed this individual, and that is why it was deleted. Maybe this individual had control over the phones, and that is why the passcode was entered incorrectly. Also, some of the bones appeared to have been bleached. Was this done by a person that hurt the girls? I think many of these possibilities could be the reason why Kris and Lisanne didn't make it out of the jungle. It could even be a combination of these. Which do you think is most likely? Kris and Lisanne probably died near each other, especially since their bones ended up in such close proximity to one another. But where are the rest of their bodies? So many bones are missing, including their skulls. It doesn't sound like there was a full search conducted. I wonder if the rest of their remains are still in that general area. These bones could hold the clues or the missing link to tell us what truly happened. I feel so bad for Kris and Lisanne's family and friends. They still don't have answers. In fact, the girls' families do not agree on what happened. Kris's family believes that the girls were killed due to foul play. Lisanne's family thinks the girls likely died in an accident or perhaps got lost along the trail. I found a video that I will link below. It was filmed in July of 2014, just a little over 3 months since the girls went missing, and a month after their remains were found. Kris's parents and local guides followed in the girls' footsteps along the Pianista Trail. They left before the sun was up to have as much daylight as possible during their search. Kris's dad described the beginning of the hike. He said that the path was clearly visible and easy to follow. When they got to the summit, they saw exactly where the girls took photos of each other. Kris's parents were able to stand exactly where their daughter did just a few months before. They continued onto the other side of the Continental Divide because from the photos, they knew that the girls did exactly this. As they headed along the other side of the trail, the terrain changed. The path led downhill and was heavily eroded. There were even steep rock formations on both sides. You could see this in Kris and Lisanne's photos as well. Kris's parents even mentioned that it would have been impossible to get off the path here and get lost. They continued on and found the stream that the girls crossed. It took the girls 3 hours to get to this location, but what the girls did next is pure speculation. Kris's parents and the guides continued on. They hiked another 20 minutes from where the last photo was taken. And they came across another stream with a waterfall. They wondered if Kris and Lisanne had gotten this far, why didn't they take a picture of this location? Kris's parents thought that the girls would have definitely taken a photo. It was a beautiful spot. Up to this point, Kris's parents believed there was no place where the girls could have fallen off the trail, gotten hurt, or even gotten lost. They continued down the path a little further. One of the guides stated that he hiked to this exact location on April 3rd looking for the girls, and he found no evidence that the girls had been there. There were no cliffs, no other trails going off in another direction. Where had the girls gone? And why had they stopped taking photos? Kris's father called it a complete mystery, and I completely agree with him. Kris's parents questioned why they wouldn't have turned back around or taken another photo if they had continued on. The guides and Kris's parents walked an hour and a half past where the last photo was taken, and approximately an hour before the emergency call was placed. They really didn't believe that the girls would have gotten this far. The girls knew that they had to hike back, and it would take them just as long. They weren't leaving themselves much time to make it back before sunset. The group also tried to locate the area where the nighttime photos were taken, but never came across anything like that. Kris's parents kept mentioning how hard it would be to get lost up to this point. The trail was pretty obvious. Kris's mother did not believe that they would have left the trail on their own. She mentioned that they would have had to make an effort to get lost. She also believed that if they would have been injured, they would have stayed along the trail. The group, including the guides and Kris's parents, turned around about 1 hour before the emergency call was placed. I understand why they didn't continue. They truly didn't think the girls made it that far, but I sure wish the group would have continued, at least for another hour, because they would have known that the girls likely didn't make it past that location before they tried to call the emergency number. At least we would have known what the trail looked like at that point. The guides explained that it would have taken at least another 2 hours from where the group turned around to get to the first monkey bridge over the river. The group did not believe that the girls could have made it to the monkey bridge before the emergency call was placed. But is that the case? Or did 2 young, healthy girls make better time than this group? If they did make it that far, to that monkey bridge, that definitely could have been why the girls called an emergency number. I really wish the searchers for Kris and Lisanne would have started sooner. Maybe there would be a different outcome in this case. Or maybe if the search was more extensive around where the bones were found, more evidence could have been located. More evidence that would have given additional answers to what truly happened. Tourism is huge for this area of Panama. I am sure that they just wanted this case to go away so it wouldn't affect their tourism. If it was found out that the girls were possibly murdered while hiking on a popular trail, this wouldn't be good for tourism. The authorities believed that this was all a tragic accident. Do they know more than they are saying? So many questions remain unanswered. Unfortunately, the families may never get answers, and the disappearance of Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon may remain a mystery. Today, at the summit of the Pianista Trail, there is a sign that says "End of Trail." This sign tells people not to go any farther, to turn around and go down the same way they came up. Too bad this sign wasn't there on April 1st, 2014. Kris and Lisanne would probably have made it safely back down the trail and continued on with their Panama adventure. Thank you for joining me here today. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and also hit the subscribe button and the bell so you'll be notified of my future videos. And follow me on social media as well. As always, have a wonderful day. Watch out for each other and keep looking for that missing link. Love ya, and see you in my next video.